Hey everyone, it's
Hey,
Brigitte and Taylor. How are you, Taylor?
hey, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I want everyone in Alabama to know, by the way, because I've seen good pictures. Was it your mom who posted pictures of her beautiful front lawn with all the flowers and everything? We got 3 inches of snow here last week, and there's more on
Right?
the way this week. So this is one of the
Oh, I'm
ways in which
sorry.
Canada crushes you. It tries. It's okay. It's gonna melt. I'm
Mm-mm, my
fine.
southern blood is too warm for that. It
Mm.
is 81 degrees here today.
Oh,
Like
so 81 in
beautiful, not a cloud in
yeah.
the sky. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it'll get
Uh,
there. Or you'll have to
yes.
come visit us.
I am coming to visit you soon, so you have to deal with me again coming down. It's
Yes.
going to be a lot of fun, and I'll come by and see my daughter Catherine is coming, and so you'll see her as well, and she'll come and see your paintings because she
We
loves
we're
Lowell.
excited.
Yay! It's going to be so much fun. I want to talk to you about a couple of things that happened this week.
Mm,
Mostly, I mean, unless you have questions for me, not much is happening up here except the elections, and it's the same old as it was. But okay, first of all, I'm excited for fluffy pancakes. I had never heard about fluffy pancakes, and there's a
uh-huh.
new restaurant that opened in Huntsville. It's called Fluffy Fluffy,
Yes.
and yeah, and it's I mean, it's just opening now these days, I
Yes.
think. And tell me what I mean, I like I know fluffy and I know pancake, but why is that a thing?
I have no idea. I did go in ether this morning to do my due diligence and research, so I could speak on the matter.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a souffle pancake, I believe. It's just this light whipped egg, you know. Just it's like eating air, but it's
Oh, with
deep
syrup.
with syrup.
Okay.
I had um, the eggs Benedict fluffy.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
it,
okay.
the eggs Benedict
Yeah, yeah.
on the pancake, and it was interesting. I thought it was going to be like some kind of little breakfast restaurant, and you go in and you sit down. It's kind of like a cafe. You walk in like Starbucks. You order. You can have coffee, a fruit drink, or water, and then you sit down and they just bring it right out to you. It's real cash. I wish they had some outdoor seating, but we'll have to go there for
Hmm.
breakfast. It's very cute. It's cute.
Okay, I just appreciate how you did your research and went and check it
I'm
out
like,
because
I
that's
can't be
important.
showing up. I got to be prepared, honey. Like we got to come prepared from the South. So I know how to speak on it.
One of the latest things that happened this week is that the state legislature in Alabama is now considering banning, criminalizing, making it a felony to do human
Hmm.
cloning. Not that human cloning is anywhere near here, like it's not a thing yet, but I was thinking
Are
about this. I guess we don't want to take any chances, but you know what the problem with that is, before you tell me what you think of it, is that if we want two of you, we're going to have to go to Mississippi or some other place. So that's going to be difficult.
we're gonna have to export it, but let's just be clear. There's not a clone of many people in Alabama that I would want, and I live here. So I think everybody should feel safe. It's kind of like that toxic masculinity, like that thinks every gay wants them. Yeah, I'm not interested
Oh,
in you. Like you're a catch. It's just that's how things go in Alabama. Like
do you really feel
the
that though?
ones
Yeah.
we would. You think that somebody wants to clone us? Like we can't even get our shit together. Our legislator, our everything down here is ass backwards. Like it just, but they might want to clone us. So anyway, we'll keep our hopes up for that one. I think we
Well,
just let the population just drop on off when it needs to.
I guess sometimes, sometimes it's just not always a bad thing when you know, people they call these the Darwin Awards sometimes when people kill themselves in the most ridiculous ways and you say, well, anyway, yes.
Yes.
That's one lesson now. We shouldn't go and do things like what you just did. That's a very dangerous thing. But and I don't mean to make it like a bad um, connection between those two topics, but one other thing that came out of the news this week in the legislature is, or actually this was signed into law, a bill to encourage. I'm reading from the news story.
Okay.
Those having suicidal thoughts to temporarily give up their guns while they sort through their troubles, and I thought that wasn't already a thing. Like, and we're not even talking about taking their guns forcibly if they're having suicidal thoughts.
You
We're
could
talking about encouraging them to not have a gun nearby while they're dealing with like serious mental health issue. Like, right? I was like, I
right,
don't want
and I
people to
just
kill themselves. Like, I'm against that, and I would rather they didn't have
no.
their gun right there just in case. And
Right.
that needed to be a thing.
This is a serious topic, but by the time I think you're in that state, that mental state, like you shouldn't be having to think about surrendering a firearm.
Hmm. Hmm.
You probably shouldn't have one. That should have been a check along the way. We need a little balance with this, and
Right.
it's sad that we have to
Yeah.
make laws
And
like that. Like this is
and that
taking up our time. Like,
Well, that, but also like, why not put it? And we have, I mean, we don't have as much private gun ownership, and certainly not in cities in Canada as y'all have down there. But we
we got
have
them.
serious, yeah, yeah, we have serious issues with nowhere near enough resources, mental health resources, with people who need them, and not just people with suicidal ideation and like deep clinical depression. So just like run-of-the-mill mental health issues, it's really, really difficult to get the resources we need. So then you wind up with people who are, say that they're unhoused, they're on the street, they have a mental health issue, and they have a crisis. And so what they do is show up at the emergency because that's the only place they can go. Or else somebody calls the cops on them, and there is a cops coming and taking them to emergency to have someone look after them. I mean, these are extraordinarily, first of all, it's not great. Like if you're already in a mental health crisis, to be confronted with cops and an emergency ward is not like comforting, for one thing. But for another, it's extraordinarily expensive. Like the emergency ward is probably the most expensive part of a hospital. Why are we not, instead of trying to come up with bizarro solutions, quote unquote, like this, instead devoting resources to preventive mental health resources?
Uh, that would be a great thing, and to go along with the health resources, but rehab
Mm-hmm.
resources.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many times with these people, you have a lack of medical attention, and that causes this to get to this mental state. But a lot of times there's a drug abuse and a mental
Mm-hmm.
illness, and we
Mm-hmm.
treat addicts here like pariahs.
Mm-hmm.
Just the worst of the worst. I think so many parts of the world embrace it better than we do, and it doesn't treat it like a plague, but it treats it like alcoholism. It's a disease,
Mm-hmm.
and you gotta tackle that first, or you're not going to get to the middle issues to even get it like till they know where they need to surrender guns.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes
No,
zero sense to me. Yeah.
yeah, and then it's the same here, by the way, about people being like, drug addictions are seen as something that's somehow like, ooh, no, we don't want to see that. Like, we want to push
No,
you away into a different neighborhood, whereas someone with alcohol abuse, like, it's so much more socially tolerated, and
right.
they're both addictions. Like, this is, or anger abuse, that too. Like in certain professions, like it's almost like a good thing that you're angry all the time.
And I'm going to poke fun at Alabama for a minute, but here in the South, we believe in our social clubs, our country clubs, and
Uh-huh.
so many that belong to, I guess, the most notable one in Huntsville, Alabama, would be the Ledges, and it sits up on top of the Ledges and all the big fancy houses, and all these people go to the biggest churches, and drugs are horrible, and they look down upon people that are on the streets. Um, and they pay this money to sit up there in the club and drink all day. But they go to church and drinking is bad, but they don't see it in the same light at all. We can get drunk and have alcoholics, but that's not really a problem.
Mm. Is there
It's,
hypocrisy in the South sometimes too? We have
but
that in common.
that we do. But what's crazy to me is they'll pay $60,000 a year, 100,000 to belong to these
Mm.
social clubs just to do it. I'm
Hmm.
like, it,
Mm. Maybe there's something else about belonging to those clubs that's more than just drinking. I hope there is for their
uh,
sake, unless they
the
really have
women
money
down
to burn.
here, right? They
Mm-hmm.
just drink and sit by the pool. It's an interesting day for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you don't have children. I have three, and they're bigger now. They're teenagers and have their phones. Um, and that's actually something that I'm writing about for my Substack as well, about how, because I homeschool my kids, and when they were little, and I let them have devices and screens and computers. Like they were about 3 or 4 the first time they had a laptop, because they were homeschooled. They were allowed and encouraged to go and look things up. So they would Google, and they would watch documentaries, and they would watch anything they wanted, including movies. what they were not allowed to watch were, I mean, this was a couple of years ago, obviously they're teenagers now, but like the equivalent of Facebook Reels right now, or like TikTok kind of thing. So they were
Fair.
not allowed to watch, like Dora the Explorer was banned in my house. I thought this show was stupid because all it did was yell for 20 minutes. There was no real storyline. There was no character development. There's no like right and wrong. It's just like random stuff happening one thing after another. And I thought, whenever the kids watched that, they became kind of weird and they would have no ability to focus or anything. So I
Brainwash.
banned this. Right. So I banned it. I banned all this and let them watch any movie that like an actual movie. And I think my kids hold a record for the highest number of times in a row that anybody has sat through Wizard of Oz. I think they must have watched it over 60 times in a row. Like they would just maniac about it. They just enjoyed it so much. And and there's more to it than that, but obviously engaging with your children helps them not be so
Right.
sucked into your screen. You yourself as the adult not always being like this helps your kids not become screen zombies. But
Mhm.
Alabama is one of those places, and it's not the only one. There's a lot of places now trying to ban or circumscribe the use of cell phones in schools. And I'm thinking, this is so the wrong way to do it. I get what people are trying to do, protect their kids' brains, but like banning things is just going to get smart kids to go around the bans. Like, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, if you try to ban copying, well, it was cassette tapes by the during those we yeah, I may have
Whoopsie.
dubbed a couple of things not especially legally, right?
But it
So
happens.
kids are smart and they go around those bans, and then there they are on their phones having outsmarted you, and you've done nothing except show that you're
Right.
this dictator. And like, I don't know what you think of that, if anything, as a someone again who doesn't have kids, so you have a different opinion. But like, you're a member of society. It's not a good thing to see people being like phone zombies.
Right, right, right. And I don't have kids, but my mother worked in the school system forever,
Right.
and that that's the disruption in the classes. When I was in school, like we had a payphone between the junior wing and the main building, or the main building and the senior wing. Like if it was something you needed a phone, you waited until between classes. In an emergency, you go to the office. Other than that,
Mm-hmm.
like you're there to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but we got some dumb children down here. We're closed. Every time they say snow, we're out. Now, if the wind blows too hard because of tornadoes, we're out. Some of their favorite color is three. Like, they've got to get a hold of something so they learn. But good luck with getting the cell phones out of their hands, because then you got the
Mm-hmm.
parents. Oh, my child needs that in case I need to get in touch with them. Well,
And that's legitimate though. Like, look, maybe
I
not with
get it,
6 year
but
olds, but
like,
with
listen,
teenagers.
right? But listen, Becky, you can call the school office and get your kid.
Right.
Like it's not going to disappear offsite. It's pretty locked down in the school system these days. Whether that's for the good or not in this situation, but like you can get your child, but I don't think they need them necessarily in classrooms. And
Mm-hmm.
I've got a friend that teaches here, and they take up their phones and they put them in a pouch and they get them back at the maybe when they go outside for recess or to lunch and then
Mm-hmm.
they come back in. But when they're in the class, they don't have them.
So you're in favor of a ban then,
Um, yeah,
or limiting the use anyway during class time, at
right,
least.
right, right. Unless it's a device that you're using for class,
Mm-hmm.
I
Like a
think you'll be
calculator.
right. Or they've got your laptop set up and they can control
Mm-hmm.
what you view and where you go and what you do, what apps are on it. So then that's fine in class. We didn't have to worry about computers when we were in class, but I
We're
think
that old.
anything. Right, we are that old. We had typewriters we learned to type on.
Right.
But the kids will make it through a period to get to an office. I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
something's that urgent, your kid's not going to get out of school. They're not going to
Right.
release them in the weather. They're not going to release them during a school shooting. Chill with the kids. They'll make it 90
Mm-hmm.
minutes until you can call the office, I think.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
But we
And then
growing up in
it's,
the 80s, we were tougher kids. Maybe that's it. And maybe because I
yeah.
don't have them, but I just don't think you need them all the time.
Yeah, I like mine are too old now, and there is a bit of a ban again with heavy
Right.
is quotes around that word at the school where they go, and have the teachers be like, whatever, like they can't fight 16, 17, 18 year olds.
No, you can't.
So they're like, what am I gonna
You know,
do, right?
right. At 18, you're an adult. They can't do anything with you for sure.
Right.
But So after I say all that, let's circle back, and I'm sure you saw this this proud American moment this week when our Secretary of Education went to a AI learning seminar for the agency, the division she's supposed to be dismantling. You know, you're the
Right.
head of this agency, you're
Mm-hmm.
dismantling, and she is a guest on stage, and she goes to speak about how kindergartners and first graders would be exposed to A1 learning. And when I heard
Oh,
this, I was like, I saw these memes, and it's got the A1
okay.
sauce bottles like next to her. Now, mind you, she was a wrestling coach or WWE. Her husband ran the WWE. She has no
I was
background
gonna
to
say,
be
not an educator, right? Like, no.
like.
Yeah.
I don't know how the fuck we picked this one, but Mahone, Miss Mahone. But she was referring to A1 education as AI education. She didn't even know what AI is, and she's running the freaking Department of Education down here. Can I get a white flag? Like, help us out up there. Like, send some sense our way. It was the most embarrassing moment. And I can't imagine to be in that education system, and this is the head of it. It's pretty darn
Wow.
embarrassing.
Your mom is in education. What grades or what age
So she was at the
range did
Board of
she?
Education.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
she when she
Okay.
retired,
Mm-hmm.
um, she was a child count specialist for special needs
Right.
students, and
Okay.
she started with one of the teachers there. It's called the Beautiful Rainbow Cafe, and it's
Mm-hmm.
for special needs children, and it's run completely by special needs children. They do the register, they do the cutting, they do the measuring, they do the gardening. It's gives them a life skill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that they can go and be a productive member of society. They work in
Yeah.
restaurants there locally. It's a cool thing. But if you get
Mm-hmm.
time, look up Beautiful Rainbow.
Yeah, I will. And I know
It's in
also
Gadsden. It's
in
amazing.
yeah, in Huntsville. I mean, we do a lot of people in other cities do that, but I know there's one coffee shop in particular I know in Huntsville is House Charlie Foster that does hire people
Mm-mm.
with special needs. Is that not true? They
Used
didn't?
to be. The
Ah,
people
that's
that owned
unfortunate.
it were amazing, and they
Hmm.
built a great business, and then they sold it to a corporate
Um,
entity, and that's the
oh,
first thing they did was let go the special needs
oh,
children and
sorry to
turn
hear
it
that.
into like a coffee bar and wine bar at night. You know, that's a very adult area and a very nightlife driven. So I get the
Mm-hmm.
need to add the wine, but it just sucked to see the kids go because that's where we
Yeah.
went for coffee.
Hmm.
But it's
Yeah.
hard, even, for Gadsden, Alabama, which is much smaller than Huntsville, for them to have a program like this. It's crazy. And it's won
Yeah.
state awards, and they've got kids that have gotten scholarships to Auburn and Alabama. It's just outstanding.
Mm. 'Cause I was going to ask you the reason I asked about the age gap is that I now that my kids are teenagers, most of the kids I see are teenage, they're friends and so on. So I
Right,
hang out
right.
with a lot of teenagers, and um, and I can tell you that when it comes to AI, like especially generative AI, they hate the thing. You know, all these memes. I don't know if you saw this past week. You could get yourself into a starter kit. Like you'd put your picture of yourself into the AI ChatGPT or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and then it would come out like you'd be like this Barbie starter kit Taylor with like paints or like they'd have stuff like that. The kids are, I mean, the kids I know, not just mine, but their friends and their group, they hate this freaking thing.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid. It looks like, hey, you're putting yourself into a Dollar General Barbie packaging, and it's the
It's
most generic and like
a
I
little
don't
vulgar
know.
too, right? Yeah.
I mean, and so I not having that like I don't see kids that age on social media. It's people my age and older, but the amount of the adults that were doing the same thing, like I'm like,
Hmm. Yeah.
I post wild shit. I post crazy shit, and I have no filter. But that's just kind of silly,
Yeah.
to put it
So
nicely.
but there's hope, right? Because the kids are all about like let's meet in real person. Let's meet live,
That
not just online. I mean, like we're doing you and I because we're 1,800 miles apart, so we don't really get the opportunity to see each other that often. So online
right?
is fine for communications, but they prefer to be together. They prefer real, genuine folks, and none of
Absolutely.
this AI perfection stuff. And they can
Yeah.
spot it right away. Like sometimes
Yeah.
I'll show them a meme and I think I'm cool. Look, look, kids, what I found. And like, Mom,
AI.
that's AI.
Right.
And they're
You
right.
again, and but it can do so many things. That's
Hmm.
not just cartoon generating.
Right. It's great
It
for summarizing a meeting. Like it's amazing.
just like that,
Yeah.
or if
Five
you can't
minutes
get
and
the
there you
words
are. Key takeaways.
just right, it's she's spot on.
Uh-huh.
Handy little tool, but
Yeah. Do you think it can stop people from talking about gay stuff? Because that's another thing that happened again. In,
in
I mean,
Alabama
it's all
talking.
over the South. Yeah, all over the South, right? These don't say gay bills. I mean, and we have people like up here who want to do that too. Like, let's not talk to a 6-year-old about homosexual families, for instance. And I'm like, well, I wasn't going to until they asked, right? Because that's often the way it works.
And
Is a
it
kid
goes
will show
right.
up and say, oh, so I have a mom and a dad, and my friend whoever has two moms. And like, what do you think, mom? So, what do you think? I think, right? Well, great. Like, is this a loving family? Yes, then we're all good, right? Love is love. And kids are like, yeah, that's cool, right? And they move on. And that's all you need to know. Like, at the age of 6, they're not
Right.
going to ask you some
They're
like
not going to
powerful question.
play
Right.
40 questions. Yes.
Right. But my question about that is always to ask, especially the militantly hetero, we call this heteronormative, like people who want everyone to be straight,
Mm.
is to say, when
Baptist.
did you know? Yeah, when did you know, you sir, at what age you were attracted to girls? And they're
That I
like,
was
well, I've
not.
always known I was
Oh,
attracted to girls, right?
me?
Oh, including at like 7 or 8? No, no, but when you talk to someone who
Oh,
wants other people to be straight just like they are,
right.
and you
Yeah.
can
It's
ask
like,
them, yeah.
and they
And
just pop it off. Yeah.
yeah, they've always known they were straight. So why couldn't a person who's gay also have known when they were 8, 10, 12, whenever it happened to them that they realized, oh, this is who I am?
This is not for
Why?
me. Like I knew from Jump Street. My mother knew from Jump Street. Like
Right.
there was never, nobody was ever fooled, and and that was okay in my house.
Hmm.
I was fortunate that so many people, especially in the South, don't get those kind of households to grow up in.
Mm.
Um,
But being in the South, do you see like why are people so obsessed about trying to police other people's speech and what they say to kids, especially when it's an answer to what the kids are asking about?
right. There's a place and a time for these conversations, and um, however you choose to have them, I think with your kids is that's your business. I think in the public spaces in schools, I know that I had teachers in school that I wouldn't have wanted explaining some of life's more complex in and outs to me when I
Hmm.
was in school, for sure,
Right.
especially
You
my
knew who
math
to
teacher.
ask, right?
Well, yeah, but I could ask my mom anything. But I
Hmm.
think you have to be careful when you're in a position like that, trying to educate other people's children
Hmm.
own this. Like sometimes you have to punt to the parents. That's my thing.
Of
They're not my
course, yeah.
kids. I want to punt. So
Hmm.
I just think we as adults should know what to talk about and what not to, especially in I think school is the issue
Hmm.
um, with them
It's
talking
just
about
taking
this.
away the autonomy and the professional responsibility of teachers to say you may not say anything. What if, in the best opinion of that professional, to say something about it and then to invite the child to talk to their parents? Well, maybe that's the right thing to do, right? Or
Right.
sometimes it may be, well, you and I, Jimmy, will talk about this after class if you want, and then you can call the parents, you can do anything you want. But sometimes it's just a factual matter. Like some kid has has two moms. What are you going to do? Deny?
Right.
Right? So the kids will know if you're lying about it. So again, it just removes that the room for teachers to be professionals. And most of them are.
Right. Most of them, yes.
Yeah, it's always
It,
most, I
it
guess.
most yes, and it's I hate it, but uh, that we're even worried about. This is what we're worried about,
Hmm.
and who uses which bathroom.
Right.
Like, just as long as they lock the door when they go in there, and you're
And,
using the single
and
toilet,
yeah.
who gives a shit?
And
Like
wash their hand
literally,
afterwards. Yeah.
right? Don't spread
Yeah.
disease. You're fine. I don't
That's
care
all.
what you wear, but these are the biggest issues that are elected officials are fighting over, and it really doesn't matter if you're gay or not, as long as you're doing your work at school and you're not causing a problem. Why
Exactly.
does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
But welcome to the South.
Mhm. What are you working on these days? I see this big
So,
painting behind you.
yes, a little Viva
Show
Resistance
us,
there,
show us.
da da da
Yeah, ta-da.
da. So we've been working on that. We've been working on the mural for the outdoor staircase, getting it graphed off. It's going to be about 36 feet tall,
Ooh.
and it'll face down Ninth Avenue. So we've got that gridded and graphed, and we're ready to get the wall cleaned, and then we'll start that process hopefully by the first of the month.
Will I see it when I'm at Gold Sprint?
Yes,
Oh, yes. Awesome. Because I
yes,
love Gold
yes.
Sprint, so I love
Right.
spending
You and
time
me
there.
both every day.
Uh-huh.
I'm at the Gold Sprint.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's so convenient, and I
Mm-hmm.
love it. In this little city, you have a gourmet coffee shop that's locally owned, and it's not a Starbucks on the corner, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the perk of West Huntsville, I will say.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So,
Anything else I
how
didn't
is?
ask you? Yeah.
No, I was going to say, how are all the things in Canada?
Well, it's heavily into the election cycle. We're
Mhm.
just entered
Like,
week
you got
forever,
what,
week
2 more
4.
weeks?
Yes, the election is, we're recording this again. I like the timestamp thing because the stuff moves fast, but we are recording on the 14th and the election is on the 28th. So it's Monday, 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
And we have two debates coming up this week. So, leaders' debates, one in French on Wednesday and one in English on Thursday. So, I get to cover both for the newspapers. We had last night, that was interesting, the two front runners. So, the Liberal and the Conservative were on this show in Montreal. It's an extraordinarily popular show. It's called Tout le monde en parle. Everyone's talking about it. That's the title of it. And they were both in the hot seat. And French is not their first language, either of them, and they
Mm,
both did okay. Honestly, one had tougher, like the liberal had questions that were a little tougher asked of him than the other guy, but they both really, I don't think anybody hurt themselves. They didn't also win, so it didn't really change anything, but it allowed French-speaking Canadians, mostly Quebecers, to have a good look at them and how they manage in their own language. And through the ear bleeding, we can understand what they're saying, and it's okay. It's not elegant French,
but
but it's functional.
so
And
just in because I don't know what's the ratio there of does everybody speak English and French, or is there a majority? No, it's a majority
Quebec is
French.
about eight. No, you're catching me. It's around 8 or 8.5 million people out of 40-ish. So it's not. Maybe it's a little more than that, but not everyone in Quebec is francophone. But overwhelmingly, pretty much everyone speaks French. There's a tiny minority who only speaks English, but most of the Anglo folks who live in Quebec speak French. It's just a thing about when you're in Quebec. I mean, French is the official language of that part of the country, and you should just get on with the program, and that's where you are, and that's how you should live. There's also about, I want to say, probably about a million, a little bit over a million of francophones who live outside of Quebec. So there's Acadian, so the same folks who went to Louisiana, the Cajuns in
Hmm.
Louisiana, that comes from our part of the world. So that's in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, that area. So there's some francophones there. There's a bunch of francophones in Ontario, a bunch of francophones in Manitoba, a little bit in Alberta, and British Columbia has a sizable minority
Okay,
also
wait,
of
wait, wait.
French
Stop right
speaking.
there. What is a francophone?
Oh, francophone is someone who speaks French, who lives in
Okay,
French. Yeah,
okay. Oh, I
yeah.
was like, what?
Yeah, so we have
I,
Anglophone, so that's English speaking folks. Francophones are Franco speaking, French
okay,
speaking folks, and Allophone, who are the other people who don't speak, their mother tongue is neither French nor English.
right, right.
So
Okay.
they're known as Allophone.
I learn
See, you're
something every
learning
day.
things.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, and I'm gonna be like, hold up, I don't. South doesn't understand. Like, hold up, we got to figure it out. Well, cool,
That's the
cool.
same way here we say a riding instead of a district. And every
Ah,
time you talk about something like that, and so I was helping produce a show for the BBC about the Canadian election, and when my folks on the BBC World Service, so this for the whole world but primarily in Britain, they were talking about their riding, the host has to cut in and say a riding is a constituency, because in
right.
Britain it's called a constituency, in the
Or
US it's a
district.
district.
Yeah.
So It's just one of those things. You have to tell people, oh, right, I know what that is. I just had a different word for it. So now you know.
Like we have counties in Alabama, but if you cross the line into Louisiana, obviously you have parishes. It's just
Because it was French, yes.
it was
And
French.
where I'm from in Quebec, we have parishes too. And they're no
Oh,
longer really that relevant. But when I was a kid, my I did not have a birth certificate that was a civil birth certificate. It was a baptismal birth certificate, and it was held in my parish. So if I wanted a copy of my birth certificate, I had to go back to that
head
church.
all the way back.
hmm
Wow.
hmm It's modernized by now. But when I was a kid, it was still like that. And I'm
That's
old,
good.
but not that old. So
Right.
it was,
That's
it was
neat.
like that until the 80s. Yeah, and I'll bet you they still have a copy of it in that church.
I bet they do.
hmm
Mhm.
There we go. Well,
All
on this
right.
note, my
Well,
dear, I will see you next week in person. We'll have to
yes,
figure out how
yes.
we're recording this together because I don't know if we can make this work, but we'll make it work
We'll
somehow.
figure it out. We'll
All
post
right.
up on different sides of the meal if we have to.
There you go. We'll do
There you go.
something. All right. Well, you have
All
a great
right.
week. I'll see you
All right. You
soon.
too. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.